Hi, I'm Eugene Sakai, co-founder of Studio S Squared Architecture. We've been around since 1997 as a full-service architecture, but more recently an interior design firm, designing homes all over the San Francisco Bay Area and now the Monterey Peninsula as well. We offer architecture, interior design, and landscape architecture all in-house. We work collaboratively with our clients and each other to create unified designs from the moment you pull into the driveway to the moment you are relaxing in the great room of your home. Today, we are going to spotlight our interior design team and how our interior designers and architects work together with our clients on our projects. So welcome to our video, Interior Design at Studio S Squared Part 2, How? If you haven't seen our companion video, I'd encourage you to have a look at Interior Design at Studio S Squared Part 1, Who and Why. So we also cover our interior design process in great detail in our video Phase 2 Interior Design. So please have a look there on either our website or our YouTube channel for an in-depth discussion between myself and Sierra Schmidt, our firm's interior design director, on our interior design process. Hello, Sierra, welcome back.
Thank you. Thank you. Hello.
So Sierra, if you were to take a look at this picture, which half of the duck are we, above or below the waterline?
We are definitely below the waterline. And the reason for that is that we are paddling away, keeping things moving, keeping progress going, doing all of the research and coordination for our clients. And the top half should be and is our client, kind of cool, making decisions, not stressing, not having to coordinate anything with any vendors or consultants. It's kind of our job to keep you afloat.
Beautiful. So we're going to go through some of our firm's deliverables here and how we do all that work below the waterline or behind the scenes, if you will. So Sierra, tell me a bit about this sheet and how your team uses it to control a client's budget.
Yeah, so this is our most important tool, I think, that is a bit unique to our firm, where we track the budget from the very beginning of the project. So we establish a budget number that you as the client are comfortable with, and based on our recommendations, based on projects we've seen that have been built to our standards and a good quality. So we set that budget number with the clients together. We figure out what that number is going to be, and we hold to it throughout the design process. And this is where you're going to see quotes, takeoffs, really a very good picture of what your project is going to cost at any point during the design process.
I can't tell you how many projects I've seen where a client says, oh, we blew our budget, and it really had nothing to do with the architecture. It had everything to do with the finishes that were selected during construction.
Yes, very easy to get out of hand.
Yeah, it's easy to get excited and carried away and overspend. Another thing about our office is that we're basically at this point completely paperless, except for your team's ever-growing sample library. So in a paperless world, what is the advantage of physical samples in the digital age?
I mean, even before the digital age, physical samples were important, but I think it's really great to firstly talk about, being paperless. We make things really easy for clients with live documents in Google Drive, where we're able to collaborate together, communicate with one another very quickly and effortlessly on certain items or certain quotes. But more importantly, our extensive sample library is incredibly important to us because we make use of the physical sample in combination with our virtual 3D models, our schedules, our quotes. And so all of that together really helps clients visualize and understand what that end result is going to look like.
That's great. And that's a little preview of what you'll be seeing later in this video when we take you through one of our digital models that has finishes built into it. But Sierra, you also touched on how we use Google Drive and Google Documents as a way to cloud collaborate with clients. And this interior schedule that I have up here, I've been here when this was just a concept, and it's truly been a labor of love, but more importantly, hundreds of hours of research and data entry and vetting, I think most importantly. So tell me more about why your team puts so much effort into these schedules.
I think that's for many reasons. You mentioned that we've put a lot of time into getting to know the right vendors and what's durable and what has lasted for previous clients to the test of time. And
Mhm.
I think that we not only put effort into this document to make things really easy for the client to understand, the contractor to understand once construction begins, but also for us as a team to be able to track specifications that we continue to use again from our trusted vendors.
Mhm.
And this has truly been a big labor of love, as you mentioned. And it's not only used for internally for us and for clients, but it's also becomes a part of our construction documents for the contractor later and holds a ton of information about each material that you're really going to see and touch in your home, whether that's tile, hardwood, lighting fixtures. I mean, it down to the cabinet hardware. We really have everything in this schedule. Eugene's only showing a small snippet of it,
Mhm.
but it holds all of that essential information that your contractor is going to need as well during construction.
Yeah, I think on a recent project that I saw your team produce, this schedule, there were 72 pages
Yeah.
of exactly this schedule with
Mhm.
all the detail that you see here on this one page. So
Mhm.
it gives you as a homeowner a pretty clear idea of how many decisions and how many materials need to be specified in a really nice custom home of the sort that we designed.
Mhm.
And quite frankly, that's a lot of the value that we're providing our clients is the ability to not have to make every one of those decisions, but really just the key ones.
Yes.
So another way that we help our clients is through our use of 3D modeling with virtual reality all included. We're going to touch on this a bit later, but Sierra, what is your overall approach to 3D modeling? This is something that I know you were trained in as a young interior designer and have really brought it to life and fully fleshed out our interior offerings through digital modeling.
Yeah, I think 3D modeling is incredibly important. It's very important for the client because being able to see how all of those materials and elements are going to come together in the space before construction puts clients at ease. I think there's a huge gap between some designers that really only rely on physical samples and flat 2D elevations, and then designers that make use of 3D models. And that's really important for client visualization. But more importantly, I think it's also important that our team is able to plan these details out in 3D and really be able to study things quickly and come up with a strong, cohesive design. And I think without 3D models, that would be harder for us to visualize and much harder for the clients to visualize. And so, this 3D model image that Eugene's showing on the screen is what our typical 3D model looks like, which is pretty realistic. But I think when we start talking in terms of VR and virtual reality, we're able to get a sense of the proportions in the space, the scale. It may not look like these ceilings are, well over 13 feet in this space. And so the VR really comes in to bring in natural light and give you a sense of how that space actually is going to feel on a human scale.
Yeah, fantastic. And like I said, we're going to get into that. Keep previewing this, but we're going to get into that on a really nice contemporary that we're designing
Yeah.
just in a couple of minutes here. So another way we help our clients is I think we're sort of obliquely alluding to this in previous slides, but it's really it's really the time value of our service, because with all those decisions, those important decisions that have to be made and fed to the contractor for implementation, it's just a lot. And most of our clients are highly successful professionals who are very pressed for time. They often have young families or just a lot of obligations. And so if they were to try to take on that entire effort, they would really be forced to make shortcuts during the process by handing off decisions to maybe a manufacturer's rep or maybe sole sourcing things from a single showroom. I think we've seen that.
Mhm.
But what's interesting is I've observed that our designers can walk into a home, not by our firm, and they can instantly tell when a house has been mostly sourced from certain vendors in an effort to save time. Sierra, what is your team's approach to sourcing from vendors?
Yeah. So I look at it as it's our job to bring the showroom to the client. And so we do that in a couple of ways. And we have just as interior designers, we have a wide range of knowledge on trusted vendors. Over, many projects, we figured out what vendors provide good quality, good price, a nice balance between the two, but additionally, just a wide range of vendors. And so we have a extensive sample library that we kind of touched on earlier, where we have all of those trusted vendors and samples right in our conference room, so that in client meetings, we can easily reach for those and be able to source from a wider range so that your home feels even more custom and tailored. Because it's true, we've walked into a lot of homes and, of course, we're trained designers, but we are able to tell that all of those tiles were from Porcelanosa, or, all those tiles were from one specific vendor. And that sort of flattens your design in some ways. And so being able to source from multiple vendors can provide more texture, more variety, and more variety in price too, really, because many different vendors will have certain tiles that are less expensive than another. So I think price comes into it a lot as well.
I think another thing that comes into it is understanding lead times from certain vendors, and sort of understanding kind of which vendors have performed better. I think in especially in today's supply chain challenged area, that can be a real area of focus for many clients who are on a tight schedule.
Definitely. Yeah.
I think another benefit that we see is that with regard to time, the general contractor can actually move things faster with all of the decisions made up front. A lot of times when someone is trying to make those decisions during construction, the overwhelming volume of those decisions by its very nature just slows the GC down as he's waiting for decisions to be made or for something to arrive because a lead time had not been accounted for.
Right.
And so, again, there's a lot of time savings to having all of this work done up front. It might not seem like it when you're going through the process because there's a lot to it, but what you're really trading is time spent at the back end for a little bit of time spent at the front end. Usually there's a multiplier effect there. So another way that we help our clients, and I think I alluded to this earlier, but I've often heard clients complain, "Oh, my designer blew my budget," and I know that this is an area of focus for you and your team. What are your thoughts on how a designer, who obviously is a person of taste and aesthetics, but how can a designer also help with regard to controlling a budget? How do we do that?
Yeah, so we've kind of touched on a couple ways that we do that in regards to designing up front and using our budget spreadsheet that we covered earlier, but being able to capture that full scope of the interior finishes in our documents really allows for a tighter, more accurate bid. We have minimal risk of kind of change orders, since we're covering all of this design study and design revisions in parallel with the architecture. And then this typically results in a small amount of owner revisions during construction, because we've done all of this work up front. We talk about front loading it so that you can save time, money, and stress later. And so being able to work on all of this together just ends up saving you money, because you're not having to file a bunch of change orders with your general contractor, because everything's been studied and figured out together.
Totally agree. All those are excellent points. I think another thing that our service tends to obviate during construction is when an owner comes in and sees something that they didn't realize was part of the design. I saw that happen so many times earlier in my career. I think the 3D modeling and digital modeling, and especially VR, have really allowed the owners, clients to understand the design before they see it being framed up. And as a result, I see very few owner revisions that are driving change orders during construction on our projects. Avoiding change orders can be a huge, huge time savings, as well as cost savings to the clients. It's actually not normal on our projects to have change orders that really slow down the schedule or provide a cost impact. So I think another way that we help our clients is, again, through the visualization. We've touched on this, but we've pulled up some examples, models, and then the built version of those designs, so that the client can see side by side how well the digital models translate to the real world versions. So Sierra, tell me a little bit about this project and what we're seeing here.
Yeah, so this is a contemporary home that we completed in Los Altos Hills for a young couple and their young child. And this is what Eugene's showing right now is a 3D model perspective of the living room. And if Eugene flips to the second slide, you can see that this is the reality. And I think that this is a perfect illustration showing how close our original design intent and our original design studies and specifications were met, through construction. And I think this also is another great example of trusting the process in a way, because the 3D model feels flat. And, it's great for visualizing, but there's still a certain level of trust that you have to put into your designer, because this finished product has so much texture and life to it, but it's a really simple design. So I think that the 3D models really help you visualize space, visualize materials, but really making use of physical samples again is going to help you be able to understand what that finished result is going to look like.
Yeah, I love that last point, because as good as the modeling technology is these days, it's no comparison for the real thing. And I think these before and after slides kind of bear that out. And I think one thing that I've seen with other firms a lot of the times, and maybe even our firm was guilty of this, earlier on, was an attempt to sort of bring a 3D model to life by oversaturating it with too many materials, too many colors, just a kind of too much of everything. And what I really like about the philosophy that you bring is an understanding of gestures that complement each other and yet don't overwhelm the viewer or the user. And I think, just seeing the difference between the before being the digital and the after being the real, this is a very good example of that. So really good point, and I wanted to highlight that. Here we have another example in a completely different style, but also done by our firm. This was a Craftsman home that we recently completed in Mountain View. Sierra, you worked on this extensively with the client. What stands out to you about this space?
I would say that the millwork in this space is what really stands out. And the beams that you're seeing on the ceiling, we had one beam that ran from the interior all the way out to the rear patio. And the other beams tie in really nicely with the fireplace millwork, really seamlessly. And I remember studying this with the team during the 3D modeling phase and trying to problem solve how to get those beams to work nicely with the fireplace and really engage and draw your eye up to the ceiling. And I think we did a really good job of that. If you show the second slide, you can see the finished result. And the millwork in this house just was really fun to work on.
Yeah, agreed. I think one of the things that we've heard on a lot of our traditional homes is that the millwork fabricator, or the finished carpenter, if you will actually take our 3D model and use it to order trim pieces and to look at the nth level of detail, is what you're seeing here. These multiple steps in this profile. Those are all basically built into our model, and they provide a really good guide for the craftsmen that put these houses together for our clients. Okay, well, now we get to the fun part of our video where we're going to have two of our fabulous project managers, Alessandra and Laura, take us through a project that they are currently working on. So we have Alessandra as a project manager on the architecture team and Laura as a project manager on the interiors team. So Laura, why don't you provide us with a brief overview of the Sawyer residence?
Thank you, Eugene. So this is a contemporary residence that we're currently working on, located in Campbell, and the clients are a young couple, an engineer and a practicing psychologist. And because we don't only design our homes for the couple, we also take into account that they have children and they also have a cat. The home is 4,500 square feet of living area and 10,000 square feet for the lot. And then because this is also a residence that is Asian, like Japanese influenced, we try to incorporate different courtyards throughout the house, which you'll eventually see in the video. Okay, so now after that brief project overview, I want to bring in Ace, where she and I are going to walk you through this project, and we're going to make emphasis on different areas of the home where we worked in together.
Thank you, Laura. Hi, I'm Alessandra, also known as Ace throughout the office. So as we showed you earlier, this is a contemporary residence in Campbell, California. The owners were originally very interested in a simple form and gesture with their exterior design. So something that started as this C shape through two different elements is a primary design element that was carried over into the interior design. So this is something that is another perk of having the architectural team and interior team in very close collaboration. So I'm going to walk you through real quickly how the foyer is kind of representing this integration. So as you can see, we have our foyer here with a side light window. I'm going to hide this person just for a second. Something that was really important for our integration between the inside and the outside is both materials and kind of refining these transition zones. So here you can see on the outside, we have this simple pebble and stepping stone design, which is then further carried into the foyer. Laura, I would like to let you discuss more about the material decisions that are made for this space.
Yes. So before that, I want to emphasize on the importance of having both architect and interior design work together, because we're both looking at the project as a team, kind of like with a cohesive goal in mind, rather than designing the architecture and trying to make the interior spaces work. So like, for example, with this area, we try to bring in elements from the exterior into the interior. So as you can see, we have loose pebbles right where those steps are as well. Also, if you keep moving into the space, you see that bench. This actually was designed by both of us, and we also like kept that same concept of bringing in materials in, but also working in with materials that were designed to the concept that the client was working with and desired. So for this area also, we have two suspension cables coming in to kind of like support that and make that as part of that room.
Yes, thank you, Laura. Another space, something that we like to consider in small details is ways to carry over the original design characteristic from the exterior. So as I said before, there was that C-shape ribbon element that really drove the exterior design. And here's an example with the powder room, how we are bringing in this black ribbon form into the small space. Just a very simple gesture that continues the overall design intent. These simple gestures are carried over in multiple spaces in various ways.
Another element that was carried over from that bench ace is the storage cabinetry that we have in that area. Here we try to kind of like have that same transition, a smooth transition between that bench and the cabinetry. And the clients wanted a storage area in this space. So this is also another good example of why having both parties working together is important, because you allow us the opportunity to ensure small details like this are taken into account. Like in this case, like making sure there is enough space to allow for cabinetry, or making sure that you can bring a soffit down in order to make that cabinetry feel like it's more built in. So those details have a big impact on the aesthetic appeal and functionality of your finished project.
Mm-hmm.
Wonderfully said.
Kind of moving on a little bit further into the space, as Laura mentioned earlier, one of the main concepts for this project was a courtyard centered in the middle of pretty much all of the primary living space. So what is really beneficial about our two teams collaborating here is that we can make all of these transition zones very thoughtfully coordinated, both material-wise, structurally, And even with just simple gestures, one of the items that this client was really into, and we found out is a very important, small, meaningful element to them, is the yin yang. And so we took that little comment and carried it into this courtyard through a small water feature. That's another thing we like to provide, is small little gestures that can provide a lot of meaning to the owner, whether or not they really ask for it. That's something we like to pay attention to.
Another element that we also work with in this home is that wood paneling that you see throughout the house. And we incorporated this element in both walls and ceilings. In some areas of the house, you can also see how sometimes this element extends from the wall into the ceiling. So also creating that C shape that we talked about at the beginning that we're using throughout the house. So it was very important for us to kind of have that flow and keeping the elements consistent in multiple areas of the home.
Yeah, very well said. So I think that this is sort of displayed for all of our viewers today that, you know, our teams, both interior and architectural, are really heavily collaborating. You know, you heard Ace talk quite a bit about the interiors, and I think that that is hugely beneficial to us because it brings that perspective in. And so I think that this is something that's not only kind of unique, not a lot of firms work this way, but it's just, you see the result in finished work and in progress work like you're seeing here. So thanks for joining us today. Eugene, do you have any closing thoughts?
So I want to thank Alessandra and Laura for doing a really nice walkthrough of a project that we have in progress that, to me, exemplifies all of the values of collaboration and teamwork and creativity that we talked about in part 1 of our video. And I want to also emphasize that our clients have been fully engaged and fully involved in all of the creative process, starting from the floor planning to every single 3D model that we've produced has been with their blessing, their input, and their guidance. So all in all, I want to thank all the team members who participated in this video. I want to thank our viewers for watching this video on interior design at Studio S Squared.
And if you have any questions, reach out to us and follow us on our Instagram account at Studio S Squared. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you. Bye.